we're getting warmed up here. We're doing jumping jacks. We're drinking our what's it called? The protein beverages, the pre-workout taurine loaded beverages, creatine power. Ray's shooting up steroids. He's juicing in the back. He's getting ready. I just got to get in the zone a little bit because I'm a little sleepy.
Oh.
So, drinking some tea because, I got up early. I went to court. Your Honor, not guilty.
Did you have to say that?
I did. I said that I deny the charges.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I did.
Nice.
And I explained why.
Nice.
Okay, well, welcome back to The Empire Never Ended. It's me, Boris, and I'm chilling here with Ray.
Hi.
It's a bright fall, sunny day here in the compound. Ray's drinking a big old glass of water. And in an ale steiner. It's an ale steiner full of water.
Yes. Well, he
has a mead horn he's drinking from. The one regret I have of Kurultai is not buying some ale horns. I have to do that next time I go.
We will be talking about, it's kind of about Germans in the 30s and 20s, so I think it's appropriate. But
to have an ale steiner.
Yes.
But not full of beer.
No.
Water. It is early yet in the day for beer. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes Ray likes to get a little crazy. Not today. So yeah, as you hinted, I guess we're taking a little departure now in Patreon zone away from Rabbi Meir Kahana to a people that Kahana didn't like very much. This is something I didn't mention actually in the Kahana episodes. One of his kind of more based moments was that he never allowed German press into his events.
Nice.
He didn't fuck with Germans. And I guess there's a reason for that because we're taking things way back. We're taking not way back. We're not going to the 19th century, right?
No, we are not. Well, in this episode, not at all. So this is kind of so I want to do like a little series on the German Conservative Revolution, the so-called Conservative Revolution. But so I'm focusing only on this one book, which the book is called The Conservative Revolution in Germany from 1918 to 1932 by this guy called Armin Mohler, who is the guy who kind of coined the term Conservative Revolution in the way that it's used, mostly now to talk about these like nationalist right-wing conservative groups in Germany in the 20s and 30s.
It's kind of, from what I understand, right, it's the kind of petri dish that eventually gives you Nazis as a kind of offshoot of this kind of broader conservative movement in Germany after World War One.
Well, I would absolutely agree with you, but his point was kind of the opposite of that. Because
but he's a Nazi, right?
Well, yes, although he was saying that he wasn't. So his point was he created this term to label these different factions of the right-wing conservative movements in Germany in the 20s and 30s that he thought were although they were different from each other, were kind of distinct enough from the kind of old school German nationalism and conservatism on the one hand, and also from the Nazis on the other hand. It was like something specific. And in fact, all like him and his followers always made a point that like these people couldn't be Nazis because they were like oppressed, like repressed by the Nazis and kind of destroyed by the Nazis, many arrested and so on. They were like almost like the first victims of Nazis, basically, or something like that.
But from what I understand, right, this is also like, I mean, there are a lot of different tendencies that come out of this movement, but a lot of them kind of facilitated the rise of the Nazis, like within Weimar Republic. No, I might be wrong about this. I'm not a super familiar with it.
I mean, yes, I would agree, but like, so like, how much it is a movement or not is questionable, because this is like his construction. You know, he gave it the name Conservative Revolution. They didn't saw themselves as like one movement called the Conservative Revolution. It's like him writing his PhD thesis in 1949, coming up with this term and defining it. So they were like, so he identifies at least like 5 different trends within it. So one would be the people that he calls the young conservatives. This is like the most kind of conservative right-wing part of that whole tendency, let's say. And these are the people who were like, some of them were friends with Julius Evola. We mentioned some of them when we were talking about Evola, like the kind of more kind of monarchist or like, classical sense conservative people, but with some like new kind of characteristics, like some sympathies for a kind of national socialism, not necessarily in the sense of Hitler, but like adopting some of socialist ideas and so on. Then the other faction is the one that he calls national revolutionaries. Those would be people who were more into that kind of sympathies with socialist ideas, and some even sympathies with the Soviet Union and Stalinism. Like people like Ernst Jünger and like Ernst Nikisch and other people like that, sometimes called like national Bolsheviks.
Yeah, so Jünger we've talked about before.
Yeah. Like Armin Mohler, the guy who wrote this book and came up with the term, he kind of idolized Ernst Jünger specifically and was directly connected to him. Then the third faction would be the folkish movement.
Oh, right.
And then there are other 2 that are like less important. One is the kind of the youth movement, also called the Bundische movement. And then the 5th one would be the rural movement, which that's how he designates various kind of peasant revolts of the 1920s, especially in the Schleswig-Holstein, the German state in the north, next to Denmark. And then like as a kind of a 6th undefined completely like faction, these are like different like important individuals who could not fit in any of these 5. Like, so he talks about Carl Schmitt, or like Thomas Mann, the writer, who was a nationalist up to a certain point. Then also Karl Haushofer, who we mentioned, like the geopolitician, like professor, and many others. So it's a kind of a composite of various groups, tendencies, individuals who necessarily didn't see each other as belonging to the same group, but he like gives them this label Conservative Revolution, and kind of rough, so when we get into the actual book, we'll talk about all of that, and we'll talk about also kind of how he sees the kind of the precursors in the 19th century that helped those kind of tendencies develop, and why he thinks they're different from Nazis and so on.
But is it just Mohler that comes up? I mean, he comes up with the term, but it seems to me, at least from what I've read in the past, which isn't admittedly too much, that also other people kind of lump a lot of these kind of reactionary tendencies from this time period together. Whether or not they call it like a conservative revolution or not, they are kind of more broadly considered to be associated with one another in some, or like seen as being part of a similar movement, right?
I mean, well, they are like people coming out of conservatism and like the right wing, and like German nationalism. So in that sense, they are related, of course, to each other in some sense. But he kind of gives a more specific, he gives them this name, and his whole point is that they are not Nazis. And in fact, they were kind of opposed to Nazis and kind of repressed by the Nazis. Is kind of really what he's talking about. And he is the kind of, I think the whole thing that he's doing is an attempt to rehabilitate German nationalism and conservatism from the accusation of being Nazis. Is really
okay.
What, from his point of view, what's it about? And this is like there were like many debates about like whether it is even like a valid term, and
Mhm,
specifically
mhm.
the way that he uses it. I mean, the phrase conservative revolution was used before him, but not in a way that he uses it. Like, for example, various reactionists would say we need a conservative revolution or something like that. But for them, it meant, restoring the old regime pre-French Revolution, the monarchist one, or something like that.
Right.
But in the way that he uses it, he's the first one who used it in that way. So
wait, I got to ask the basic question, which is,
okay.
Why should any of us care about the German conservative revolution from World War I until the Nazis seized power or whatever?
Well, okay, so I would say, like, first of all, this, like, exactly as you said it, and kind of Armin Mohler denies it. It is the milieu out of which Nazism came out.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other hand, post Second World War, his book specifically and his concept became the basis of what is called the European New Right.
Yes.
And
okay.
Armin Mohler was the leading representative of the European New Right in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
He is the guy.
And we've talked about the New Right oftentimes with its kind of the French parts of it, right?
Yes.
That are represented by certain characters like what's his face,
Alain de Benoit.
and these people, right?
Alain de Benoit is the founder of the kind of the European New Right in like defining what it is as a movement, and also by literally founding the first group that represents this trend in 1968.
That's
but he was like a
Nouvelle Droite, right? Like it's actually
that just means the New Right, but the group itself is called GRECE. It's like an acronym, GRECE, which in French is short for like the Group for the Research of European Civilization or something like that.
Oh, okay. It's not sketchy at all.
And definitely not. And he started that in 1968. De Benoit did, and he was a close friend of Armin Mohler. Like they were close collaborators, and in fact, some of the positions of the European New Right, as defined by Alain de Benoit, were defined under the influence of Armin Mohler, because he was writing even before it was defined as a new movement. So, like, so a lot of the people from the so-called German conservative revolution of the 20s and 30s were used by them later on to construct their own kind of ideology, which they, kind of tried to make it non-fascist sounding, although they were always accused of being fascist and still are.
Right, and so this is crucial to understanding the modern European right in its many forms. A lot of it comes out of these New Right traditions, not all of it, but that there's a lot of connections there, right?
Yes.
And then that's being traced back to this German, what Mohler calls the German conservative revolution.
Yes, and not only to the European New Right, but also, for example, to the what was called in the US the alt-right as well.
Right.
So, I mean, there is continuity between all of these concepts, and through Armin Mohler specifically. So we'll talk about this book in detail. I'll probably do like 3 or maybe even 4 episodes about what he's actually writing about.
Damn.
But this episode is kind of episode 0 in the series, where we'll talk about not so much what's in the book, but about the book itself.
Okay.
And specifically about the English US edition that I have, because it's interesting.
That's published by someone very sketchy, right?
I mean, it's published by Richard Spencer.
Oh, right. Okay. Is this why you've been going down the Richard Spencer rabbit hole recently? Okay. I wasn't sure if it was sometimes we on Tiny Pod get into a particular state of derangement where things happen just, on their own. But yeah, that makes more sense now. I was wondering why you're spending so much time listening to Richard Spencer's podcast.
Yeah, it's not only because it's so much fun, it's also because it was work. Yes.
It's work, slogging through. I realize now that we made a very crucial error by not loading up the fucking yodeling track for this entire series, because I feel like we're gonna have a lot of German beer hall music.
So yeah, so I think that we can use that for the next few episodes because this one won't be.
Oh,
so
trust
much
me, we will. We'll overuse it. We'll
This
find some
one
other
won't-
weird German shit to put in there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Lots of opportunities for such things. This one will be more about like the. I will go through a few names. I don't know. There's like 5 of them. There are like people like who are a part of this, like from starting from Armin Mohler himself, and then everyone else who is a kind of involved in the American edition of the book.
Uh-huh.
So, and this will give us like I think a good overview about exactly what you asked, like why is this book important and what does it connect to?
Does Armin Mohler have a glass eye? What's up with his eye?
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm looking at a picture of him right now. He's got a busted ass eye.
I don't know.
Mohler
so-
got the glass eye with the fish in it. Sorry. Okay, let's go.
I will start talking about him specifically and then move to other figures,
Okay.
and concluding with Richard Spencer himself. Although I won't talk so much about him. So Armin Mohler was a Swiss guy, Swiss German, born in Basel in 1920.
The Swiss been making their appearance in the show lately.
And specifically Basel, yeah, Schuon was also kind of based out of there, yeah. And Mohler died in 2003 in Munich. In 1938, he became a university student in Basel, and he was studying like art history, German studies, philosophy, and so on. And he later claimed that he was a leftist at that time, even called himself like a salon communist or something like that.
Okay.
But other people denied this. Even some of his friends said that this is like a myth that he was creating about himself, that he was never a leftist, that there was nothing Marxist about him whatsoever. And that he was trying to make the point that he was always the kind of the object of his critique was always liberalism, and that he would give more credibility to himself by saying that at some point he was even criticizing liberalism from kind of a leftist point of view. And also, like, this is often kind of an this kind of an origin story or a myth that a lot of right-wing people like to give to themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I mean,
yeah.
even today, like, it's a lot of internet Nazis are like, I was a socialist too, like,
Yes,
for 3
yeah.
months 10 years ago or something, you know, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when he was 20 years old, so this would be 1940, he was drafted into the Swiss military. But in February of 42, he deserted and illegally crossed the border into Nazi Germany in order to join the Waffen-SS.
Oh, okay. I mean, okay, so you have the one country in Europe, or like one of the very few countries in Europe that's not involved with the war, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, Spain, Portugal, neutral too, but you know, for different reasons. But you know, you're sitting, your entire country is sitting this out, and you know, making money. And you decide to leave the cushy Swiss army to become part of the SS, and I'm sure this will help the deflect the I'm not a Nazi accusations.
Well, he was saying that like he became like a German nationalist, and this is the reason why he did it. That he read a lot of Oswald Spengler, specifically Decline of the West, and also Ernst Junger's book Worker, which is the one that I think Evola translated to Italian. And this made him like a German nationalist, and why this is the reason why he wanted to join the Waffen-SS. And the one of the texts in the American edition of the book, they say how like when he actually got there, he got disillusioned by what he saw and was kind of repelled by the totalitarian character of the Nazi system, and then he kind of gave up on this idea of joining the Waffen-SS. Is basically all they say. But some other sources say that he actually went through training with the Waffen-SS, specifically like a subversive training, like I guess training in subversive activities or whatever, for specifically the Swiss Nazis. They like Waffen-SS had a special program for Swiss Nazis in Stuttgart, and also actually went through something which was called the Reich Leadership School. So like the school for the young leaders of the
It's
Reich.
like the Kennedy School of Government, but for Nazis.
Yes.
Okay.
And then after going all through this, training, he was not recruited into the military or the Waffen-SS. So some sources say that he was classified as unreliable. Others says that he was physically not fit. But he wasn't actually then from what we know, ever officially part of the Waffen-SS.
Okay.
Which is, interesting because he, for some months more, stayed in Berlin and became a university student there. So he started art history there, and then after some months, he returned to Switzerland and got a prison sentence of 1 year for being a deserter.
All right.
Which is kind of an interesting origin story. Like, it's almost kind of paranoid side of me almost says that he was recruited in some capacity.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, if they had a school specifically for training or a program specifically for training Swiss Nazis, the idea would be presumably that the Swiss Nazis would take that home, right, and do something there.
I guess, yeah.
At least spread some sort of pro-Nazi sympathy, if not something more subversive.
Yes. So in 1944, he continues his studies in philosophy and art history in Basel. And in 1949, after the war, he completes his doctorate. And the doctorate is the book, the first version of the book, The Conservative Revolution in Germany from 1918 to 1932.
Okay.
And his supervisor is the famous German liberal philosopher Karl Jaspers. And this is also what gives like credibility to his book because, Karl Jaspers definitely was not a Nazi, and he's like a pretty famous, well-known philosopher. And he was like he's a supervisor or the advisor.
And Jaspers was Swiss as well, or
he was Swiss German as well. I think mostly known as like a German, I think. And so this was published as a book next year in 1950. And since then, I think it's currently in its 6th German edition.
Damn.
And it was like a very influential book, obviously. So Mohler was very much like, even before going to, trying to join the Waffen-SS, he was very much into specifically Ernst Jünger. And when he was a student in Berlin, he would copy by hand all of the Ernst Jünger's texts that he could find in the libraries that were published in the 20s and 30s. These are like his texts when he was in his National Revolutionary phase, as Mohler would later call it.
Do you think it would make sense to just do a quick recap of who Ernst Jünger is, just in case?
Yeah. I mean, Ernst Jünger is like a very kind of famous German writer. He lived for a long time, and he died at the end of the 90s, I think. And he was
like 102. That's impressive.
Yes. And he was obviously like a very kind of a smart guy. I would say a fascist for sure in 20s and 30s, but not a Nazi. He had his own ideas. He was like very kind of a very modern person at the time, probably influenced partially even by like Italian futurism and things like that. He was like very enthusiastic about war and such things. He wrote a book about First World War in which he participated in called Storms of Steel, which is
sure.
Yeah,
I know that.
And he was like a kind of a soldier, who I think he was wounded a bunch of times in war, but also like a very kind of sophisticated, cultured person.
So wait, he came out of World War I being like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that was not most people's impression of that war, I think, at all.
I mean, okay, probably there was some kind of ambivalence there, but he saw the good side in it, I think, as well. Like, of what war, like what kind of people it produces.
Men choking to death in trenches from poison gas. Very romantic. Shitting and pissing in mud.
Well, he's the guy who's a hardcore German nationalist, but also like had sympathies for like the Soviet Union. He was one of the people who was a part of that group called something like the German Society for the Study of the Soviet Union or something like that. He was primarily like an anti-liberal, anti-bourgeois person. He thought that to be a liberal bourgeois middle-class person is the most decadent, degenerate thing you can possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
But he, after the war, kind of changed his position after the Second World War. He was not interested in, like, he was not a nationalist anymore. He was a kind of a post-conservative anti-nationalist, even, you could say.
Interesting.
He definitely wasn't like a leftist or a liberal or something like that, but he was very much, he was engaged in like reestablishing the friendship between France and Germany and such things. And it was like almost a kind of a pacifist, something like that. And so this was disappointing for a lot of his fans from the 20s and 30s. So in 1946, Mohler published a text about Junger, which was very positive. And this is how Junger heard about Mohler, and then they got to know each other. And Mohler actually became, like, his job was that he became Ernst Junger's private secretary.
Wow.
This was in 1946. So they were very close, but then they split in 1953. They had a falling out because Junger decided that he will censor his own texts from the 20s and 30s when they were supposed to be collected and published in new editions. He kind of, excluded some parts of those texts that he didn't agree with anymore, that were written in the 20s and 30s. And this is exactly why Armin Mohler loved him so much, were the parts that were excluded now. So
the nationalist parts, the World War I was cool, that kind of stuff.
All of that stuff, yeah. So he even, Mohler publicly criticized Junger even for doing that, and then he was fired from his job of being his.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah. So Armin Mohler worked as a journalist in the 50s and 60s, and in 61 he got a very important job. He became a secretary for the Carl Friedrich von Siemens Foundation. This is the foundation of the Siemens Corporation. Right. And he got this job through a friend of his called Franz Riedweg, who he got to know in 1942, and who was an officer in the Waffen-SS.
Oh, okay.
This guy, gave him this job, or through his recommendation, he got it. So in 61, he became the secretary of the foundation, and in 64, he became the managing director. So he was the head of the whole foundation, and he had this job until he retired in 1985.
Damn.
So this is a foundation by a very big corporation owned by the Siemens family, which was founded in 1958 in order to promote science, is the idea.
Mm-hmm.
So in the period of 64 to 85, when Armin Mohler was the head of the foundation, they became really the kind of the main hub for the development of the new right in Germany. They published a lot of books of which were collection of texts edited by Armin Mohler or other people, which were very much influential in the development of the new right in Germany and other countries in Europe.
So the Siemens Foundation basically funded a lot of this European new right stuff.
Absolutely. Not only funded, but directly published, and gave the job to the main kind of ideologue of this movement. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't think I need to remind people that, Siemens is one of the largest German multinational conglomerate. That's interesting. And they didn't have an exactly, glorious history.
No.
During World War II.
But it's always, for these German groups, it's always, they're always troubled by their past. I think that in 2023, this Siemens Stiftung Foundation, actually, they started a research project to examine their own past in connection with the new right, and they hired some expert, and so it's another case of a bunch of Germans coming together to ask the tough questions,
right?
Are we Nazis? Why do people say that we are Nazis? Things like that, which is very obviously that they are responsible for this. I mean, they gave a job, and the main job, to the main ideologue of the new right,
who then published the new right via their foundation. I mean, that's Yeah.
I mean, not to mention that the Siemens Corporation also, during the Second World War, they used labor from Auschwitz. But
they moved past that, and then in the 60s made neo-fascism. But it's different because they're not Nazis.
Yeah. In fact, they were the victims of that.
Yeah.
Well, and so from 1994, Armin Mohler was connected with a journal called Junge Freiheit, which became the main kind of publishing organ of the New Right milieu in Germany, and this is a journal that's still published. He had a column in it called Notes from the Interregnum, which this also concept comes out of the kind of conservative revolution view that a republic was a not suitable political system for Germany, and it can only be temporary. So, therefore, Notes from the Interregnum, like waiting for, I don't know, a political change in Germany. I also kind of reminded of, so we were just now guests on Radio Warner talking about the protests in Serbia, and we mentioned this right-wing professor from Serbia called Milo Lompar and his role in the protests. And so Milo Lompar is like a Serbian right-winger, but he's a big fan of German culture. And he was also, I remember some interview where he was talking about how, Germany is also kind of negatively affected by leftist liberalism and shame connected to being German and so on. And he illustrated this by saying how when he was in Germany, he wanted to buy this Junge Freiheit newspaper, which he loves, and was kind of shocked by the way that like a person working at a kiosk reacted when he asked for it. That they looked at him like he was a fascist or a Nazi or something like that and told him, no, we don't sell that. And he was like... And he was like completely like shocked by that, and he said, "This is like there's nothing fascist about that newspaper. It's a normal kind of conservative newspaper and things like that." But yeah, it's a newspaper where Armin Mohler had a column, and it's like closely connected to this whole new right idea. During the same time, Mohler also published texts using pseudonyms in a much more like obviously fascist publications were published at that time, and even connected to some neo-Nazi groups and like Holocaust revisionism and things like that.
I was gonna ask that was gonna be one of my questions coming up here, which is anti-Semite, Holocaust revisionist, yes, no, indifferent.
Yes, although he was very smart about that. So he kind of he was more open about it as he got older.
Because I know there are aspects of the European elements of the European New Right that aren't particularly anti-Semitic, right?
I mean, I think they are, but they're very smart how they formulate this, so they don't sound anti-Semitic. I mean, yeah, that's the whole kind of shtick, is that they have very creative ways of making basically the same points as Nazis, but sounding almost like liberals. So in the 70s, Mohler became closely associated and a supporter of a very important German mainstream politician called Franz Josef Strauss. Strauss was the leader of the CSU, that's the Christian Social Union, which is the kind of the main conservative party in Germany is the Christian Democrats, but in Bavaria, it's a different party that has that position. It's called the Christian Social Union, and they are like always affiliated with the Christian Democrats, but they represent that kind of politics in Bavaria specifically.
Well, Bavaria in general has kind of different politics, right?
Well, they're Catholic, yeah.
And they have the whole like royal legacy and that kind of thing. It has a different vibe. Generally more conservative.
Yes, so the Christian Social Union is more right-wing and conservative than the Christian Democrat. And this Strauss guy, he was the prime minister of Bavaria from 78 to 88, but he was also like on different occasions, he was also like a minister in the German federal government. The most important was that he was the Minister of Defense from 56 to 62, and he was also Minister of Finance from 66 to 69, but he had other positions in government as well. So very important, influential guy. And Mohler was like his close advisor and also like a speechwriter for him. So that's a pretty, important, influential position to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So during his, career as a public intellectual that lasted for decades, Mohler would repeatedly call for the end of the so-called like coming to terms with the past project in Germany, meaning, critically examining the Nazi past of the Germans and so on. And he thought that this is just another way, like to use the Nazi history in order to like politically disqualify people who have different ideas and so on.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and he had this thesis that it's important for Germany to be able to kind of go through a process of self-determination and come up with some kind of a positive identity for themselves, and that this would be impossible as long as a positive view of German history was obscured by the commemoration of National Socialism and its crimes. So this is like a more kind of sophisticated way of like Maya's idea that we need to, deny the Holocaust in order to go to space.
Right. Or I mean, but this is kind of what Willis Carto's Holocaust denial also kind of comes from the similar position, which is like, if we admit that these things are true, or if we acknowledge that these things are true, it means that our project is delegitimized completely, and therefore it can't be true.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. And so I think this is kind of maybe a less explicit version of that, and just being like, we can't advance as a society if we're, thinking about the fact that we, killed millions of people.
Well, I mean, at one point it got very explicit. So he died in 2003. But like in the 90s, at some point he wrote a text in which he called for a more thorough scientific examination of the so-called Auschwitz lie.
Ah, okay. That is pretty explicit, yeah.
Pretty explicit.
Carto is smiling.
And so in 95 he gave his last interview, which is very interesting. In what it says about his whole project to the conservative revolution. So he was asked a question in that interview: do you still admire Hitler today as you did in your youth? So this is like, I don't know if he went through like a little school for ex-Nazis how to answer this question, but he failed if he did, because the first thing he said was, what do you mean by admire? Which is like not what you want to say if you don't want to seem like a Nazi. And then he said, after all, he created a proper leadership. The cadres he cultivated had style.
Had style.
Yes. And then they asked him, like, are you a fascist? And he said, yes. In the sense of Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera, which is the guy, the founder of the Spanish, how do you call it, Falange?
Phalangists, yeah.
Yeah. And then they asked him, like, what is fascism for you? And Armin Mohler says, for me, fascism is when disillusioned liberals and disillusioned socialists come together to form something new. This results in what is called a conservative revolution.
Okay, so he spent decades trying to disassociate like this conservative revolution from Nazis, and then in his old age, just a few years before his death, is like, yeah, I'm a fascist in many ways, and yeah.
But I think the point that he's making in the end is like, also like they're not Nazis, but they are fascists.
Fascists, yeah, sure.
Like he's into Spanish fascism. He's not into being a Nazi. So I think that was, in a way, his whole project was like also to rehabilitate fascism from Nazism. Really, in the end, that's what it was. Like, you can be a fascist in many different ways. You don't need to be a Nazi. He's kind of the point of the whole conservative revolution thesis, I think.
And this is something that we talk about all the time too, right? There are plenty of fascists who aren't Nazis.
Yes. So, I mean, in a way, he's right. But the thing was that for a long time, and still to this day, a lot of people who read this book use it in order to say that these people were not fascists.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that they were fascists, but
not Nazis.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially like the European New Right people who totally deny that they are fascists.
Mm-hmm. So they miss. Is that like when they read that interview with Mohler, or when that's published, they're like, oh well, he was. Old people say some crazy stuff.
Well, I mean, so the American edition of the book that I have, it has like, I don't know, 3 different forewords and 1 afterword, and no one mentions that interview.
Okay.
Or anything close to it.
Uh-huh.
And it's not controversial. He absolutely said that.
Right.
But they ignore it. Okay, so that was about him. And so when he died, one of his like followers, kind of a close associate, became the editor of the new editions of the book. So he's almost kind of a co-author at this point, because like the American edition of the book also has his name on the cover page.
Okay.
He's called Karlheinz Weissman. And it's kind of strange because you read, this book by Armin Mohler, and then all of a sudden in the text, Armin Mohler is like mentioned, like as Armin Mohler said, or something like that. Like it's like Armin Mohler's text that talks about Armin Mohler, like it was written by someone else, because parts of the book are actually written by someone else, and this is this guy.
Interesting.
So Karlheinz Weissman was born in 1959. He's one of the leaders of the European New Right in Germany, or basically at this point you can call it the German New Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's has a PhD in history. He's a former high school history teacher, and he was for decades a columnist for that newspaper that I mentioned, Junge Freiheit.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2003, he co-founded with some other people a new right think tank called the Institute for State Policy. And he was the academic director of this institute, but then had a falling out with them and left them in 2014. He was also for years editor of a new right journal that was affiliated with this group called Secession, which he was the main editor from 2003 to 2014. And this institute also closed in 2024. But okay, he was already gone from that group by that time. This was a key think tank of the German New Right. And that group is by the German state officially is designated as a right-wing extremist group.
Mm-hmm.
Their main objective was to produce new cadre for the new right-wing movement in Germany through various seminars that they organized, education, books they published, and so on. And often they were attended by neo-Nazis, by people who were affiliated with the National Democratic Party, which is a neo-Nazi party, from their youth wing and so on. And also from people from the so-called identitarian movement.
Right.
As well, which also comes out of the kind of new right. The identitarian
and kind of had
is,
its heyday right in the 2000s.
Yes.
Up until basically the early 2010s.
Yes. Very much a continuation of some of the main points made by the European New Right. So, for example, this journal that he edited, Secession, also had texts that were praising Italian group Casa Pound. And, so very...
Casa Pound is named after Ezra Pound, and it's a Italian fascist kind of youth group that mimics basically squatter culture. They have a squat in where are they?
Rome.
In Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And really has the aesthetics copied from European left movements and anarchist movements and squatters. And
it's kind of like what fascists always did, but in a kind of updated way.
Yeah, they're like the hip fascists.
Yes. So what is especially interesting? So this guy Karlheinz Weissman was he was closely associated with Armin Mohler, obviously, and he defines himself as a follower of Armin Mohler, who wants to bring back the ideas of conservative revolution in today's Germany, specifically ideas by Ernst Jünger, Carl Schmitt, and other figures of this movement. But in 2018, he became a member of the board of trustees of a Stiftung, a foundation, educational one, called Desiderius Erasmus Stiftung, or Foundation,
mm-hmm.
which is a foundation closely affiliated with the AfD political party, the Alternative for Deutschland, the German kind of post-fascist extreme right-wing party.
And now one of the biggest parties in Germany.
Yes, I think second biggest, I guess.
Yeah.
So this is kind of alarming because Germany has this system that every political party has such a foundation affiliated with it. And when a political party enters Bundestag, the parliament, for the second time, then depending on how many deputies the party has in Bundestag, that foundation gets money from the German, I think, federal budget.
Right.
So there are many, so the Christian Democrats, they have the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. The Social Democrats have the Friedrich Ebert one. The left has the Rosa Luxemburg one, and so on. And this is a lot of money, and so they have these kind of foundations have activities even outside of Germany. So I think that like the Rosa Luxemburg Foundation even had like an office in New York City at some point, in a lot of places.
And they're present a lot in different countries, especially from my experience in the Rosa Luxemburg Stiftung, is present in Eastern Europe and, funds a lot of activities there and stuff. And that's like the left one. So you can imagine that the right one will be doing very similar things.
Probably, yes.
Similar as in they'll be pumping a lot of money into, East European, maybe right-wing groups or other European countries, right-wing groups.
Yes. And so the guy who's the main kind of successor of Armin Mohler is on the board of trustees of that fund. So, which is
fantastic.
So obviously also kind of very influential guy, potentially even more so. So throughout the decades that he was active, he advocated a cultural revolution from the right, which is a very kind of new right thing to do. And the aim of this cultural revolution would be to achieve a publicly effective hegemony of new right ideas in the society. One of these ideas is a demand for a self-confident nation, which would discard this idea of coming to terms with the past. And he also advocates this idea that Germany should again be a great power in the world.
So they came to terms with the past and they're fine with it.
Yes,
basically.
I mean, this is the kind of a fascist way of coming terms with the past, saying like, okay, yes, we were fascists, but not all of us were Nazis. Basically,
now are they also kind of obsessed with the whole cultural Marxism thing? Is that kind of
I think so.
Why
yes,
they see the need to have a right-wing cultural revolution.
Yes, I think I will talk about that now in a few minutes. But that's like, I think the whole shtick that the new right has was that, but like since the 60s, seeing that and having some kind of analysis of the left using culture, but adopting it as their own method, basically. So they decided they want to do the same thing. And so Weissman, he thinks that Germany should return to Prussian values, which he contraposes to like modern decadence. And he also is very alarmed by the influence of Islam in the West. And he thinks that Islam is its influence is expanded in the West through carriers of these Islamic teachings, who are, in his view, Bedouin tribes of Jewish and Arab origin. These are the people who are spreading Islam. So he has some race analysis of, I don't know, that says that they are also Jewish somehow.
So the European migrants, like the whole migrant crisis as they'd see it, isn't just that they're Muslims, but that the Muslims are also Jews.
It seems
it's the same kind of rootless Bedouin, right? They're nomadic, Judeo-Islamic.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Interesting.
He's also basically kind of supporting the whole Great Replacement conspiracy theory.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But he also thinks that the main enemy of Germany and Europe is not Islam, it's liberalism, because liberalism is enabling all of these things to happen.
Okay.
So the American edition of the book by Armin Mohler that I have has the foreword and also the afterword written by Alain de Benoit himself. So Alain de Benoit, we mentioned him already, the main founder of European New Right, French guy, close friends with Armin Mohler, started the first new right group in 1968, the one that I mentioned already, GRASS. But interestingly, in the 1950s, Alain de Benoit is like a total nerd, looks like a very kind of, a total intellectual type. But in the 1950s, when he was young, he was actually a member of a fascist terrorist group called the Young Nation, which bombed the French National Assembly.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Also, it's interesting to say that in the 80s, one of the main, or maybe the main German new right group that was affiliated with Alain de Benoit was called the Tool Seminar, named after the
Tool Society. No,
yes.
Interesting.
So as you mentioned just now, Alain de Benoit was influenced by the way he analyzed like some Marxist ideas, especially coming out of Antonio Gramsci. I mean, the way he read him is kind of specific. Maybe many people think it's kind of incorrect, but he adopted a kind of self-styled right-wing Gramsciism for himself and his project.
Okay.
And this idea of like having political influence, not through necessarily directly political means, but through culture and through this. So they use this term metapolitics.
Mm-hmm.
It's very present in these circles, and this is this idea having political influence through indirectly, like through culture, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, like one example of that would be, the neo-folk scene, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of these people from, like a lot of these influences from the conservative revolution through the European New Right and so on are present in the neo-folk scene, and they see many of them who are fascist see their project serving this goal. Like we are creating a new culture or subculture that can always deny that we're not political, we are artists, we are this, we are that, but we are having political influence through art and culture and creating scenes and promoting ideas about Europe, the West, values, and so on.
Okay.
So that would be kind of one of the most successful, maybe, cultural projects coming out of this kind of milieu in some way. But he was also, Alain de Benoit was kind of interesting because he originated a lot of these ideas that would later be called national anarchism. And some of the influences that we saw, even by among some of the American boneheads, like the American Front, and when Bob Hike was having conversations with Tom Metzger in the 1980s. So, Alain de Benoit was saying how the kind of homogeneous nation-state concept is obsolete by now, and he emphasized ideas such as regionalism, local cultures,
right,
and things like that, and also was very much against assimilation of immigrants into European cultures.
So this is also what the like autonomous nationalism and the like.
This
is because that was also very present in this kind of 2000s European right. And we've talked before about like Ukrainian militias like avant-garde who have this kind of post nation state idea of like some sort of decentralized tribal confederation or something of like free Cossack warriors or something.
Yes. So Alain de Benoit was very intelligent in the way he basically affirmed some kind of a form of racial segregation, but using terminology that sounded very non-fascist. And he would say even like anti-fascist is how he would present. And he was very much influenced by Armin Mohler in this. Like a lot of Mohler's ideas were kind of crucial in the way that Alain de Benoit formulated some of these terms and ideas. So, for example, a crucial term that was affirmed by Alain de Benoit was ethnopluralism.
Oh, God, yeah.
So you want to preserve different ethnicities and the cultures they have, and the modern kind of liberal model wants to deny that, all of that, and to make it into one kind of blind culture. So he also claimed the term anti-racism for himself, but he called his kind of anti-racism as differentialist anti-racism, which he opposed to the universalist anti-racism, which he thought was just is just a flip side to racism itself. It's kind of a similar concept like to some of the things that the original Eurasianists were talking about.
Sure.
If you remember, they also thought that this kind of Western universalism is basically Western racism that wants to turn everyone into, a reflection of their own culture.
Which Kahana says that too. Liberals are the actual racists.
Because, there you go. Yeah. Alain de Benoit is also very much against Judeo-Christianity, and he insists on calling it that. He's like a pagan. I think not in a literal sense. I don't think he's actually religious, but he wants to revive old European paganism. And he thinks that monotheism is actually the root of totalitarianism. You see?
Okay.
So not only that he's against fascism, but that's also the fault of the Jews.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's a critique of U.S. imperialism. He was very much against the war in Iraq and such things. And he's specifically against the Western concept of human rights, which he thinks is a part of this kind of imperialist ideology of the U.S. and so on.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so that would be about the Europeans. And now we'll talk a little bit about the Americans who are involved in the publication of this book.
All right. Richard Spencer.
Well, not only him. There are more interesting people than him, actually.
Most people are more interesting than Richard Spencer.
Yes, you're completely right. The first American that we'll talk about is a guy called Paul Gottfried. So this book has more than one foreword to it, and one of them is written by Paul Gottfried. So Gottfried was born in 1941 in a Jewish family in the Bronx. His parents were immigrants from Hungary, and they were a part of the Jewish Hungarian community in New York City. Gottfried attended Yeshiva University in New York and then went to Yale, where he studied under Herbert Marcuse, with whom he disagreed with from the start, because Paul Gottfried is the leading paleoconservative political philosopher in the United States.
So I was going to say, I know that name from somewhere.
He's a very influential guy. He's not only a leading paleoconservative political philosopher, he's the guy who coined the term paleoconservatism and neoconservatism in 1980. So he coined these terms as kind of opposing terms to define what he saw as a good part of the conservative movement, which would be the paleoconservatism, which was the kind of alt-right isolationist American right wing that he wanted to bring back, which he defined as, being against immigration, against multiculturalism, for economic nationalism, and also for some kind of control of free trade as well. His whole political project is that he wants to revive this kind of old American right, one represented by the guy, Mervyn K. Hart, for example.
Right.
And he calls himself, Gottfried, as a kind of a right-wing pluralist. And he was a college professor of humanities. He's in his 80s now. He's probably retired. I'm not sure exactly. But interestingly, Paul Gottfried was a good friend of Richard Nixon after Nixon resigned from the presidency. And in the 80s, Gottfried was expelled from the National Review Journal of William F. Buckley. And we talked about some of those things when some right-wingers were excluded from the National Review.
Right.
And when he was asked why he was excluded, Gottfried said something, it's kind of interesting reply. He said something like, well, National Review didn't fire anyone for being a racist, which, probably means that he was fired for being a racist.
Right.
But then he says, but by that time they were captured by interests supportive of immigration and multiculturalism. So I think what he's saying that they didn't fire him because they had anything against racism per se, but they were supportive of other political, interests at that time. And it was not convenient for them to have someone like him affiliated with them, probably. So after this, Gottfried was affiliated with various publications and journals, including one that also had some neo-Confederate writings published in it. And he was also a key advisor to Pat Buchanan, who was kind of the political face of paleoconservatism. And he was also a close advisor to Buchanan in Buchanan's 1992 campaign in the Republican primaries for the candidate for president when he was running against George H.W. Bush. And also, Gottfried was close friends with Maury Rothbard, the kind of one of the main ideologues of libertarianism.
Yeah.
And had even an affiliation with the Mises Institute, so, very kind of libertarian stuff. But parallel to that, he was also in contact with Alain de Benoit and became the main American correspondent for French New Right journals published by Alain de Benoit.
Interesting.
Alain de Benoit also, we mentioned that before, when he was young, I think in the 70s, he had a connection with Reville Oliver. They corresponded as well.
Right.
Yeah. In 2008...
And sorry, what they make of Gottfried being Jewish?
I don't know. I think they, like we mentioned before with, Adam Parfrey, I think these people benefit from having someone of Jewish origin who agrees with them.
Sure.
Because, it helps them present themselves as not being Nazi. In 2008, Gottfried founded a group called the H.L. Mencken Club, which the SPLC describes as a white nationalist organization. And Richard Spencer was a member of the board of this club in 2008. So Richard Spencer has a direct and close connection with Paul Gottfried. He was basically mentored by Gottfried. And in the same year when they founded this group in 2008, they co-authored a text in which they used the term alt-right for the first time. Mm-hmm. So Paul Gottfried not only coined the term the paleoconservatism, but also the alt-right, together with Richard Spencer. Gottfried was also affiliated with events organized by the American Renaissance, which is a kind of a racist group, intellectual racist group founded by that guy called Jared Taylor, connected with kind of the neo-eugenicist movement as well. In 2010, he was a contributor to a website called The Alternative Right, which was edited by Richard Spencer. And in 2015, so this is a year before Charlottesville, Richard Spencer and Gottfried also co-edited a book together.
Damn.
In 2016 is when Charlottesville happened, and there was Nazis marching with torches in the night and shouting, "They will not replace us," and "Jews will not replace us," and "blood and soil." And Richard Spencer was one of the organizers and leaders of that. So in that year, Gottfried said, "Whenever I look at Richard Spencer, I see my ideas coming in a garbled form."
In a garbled form.
Yes. And he said, "I just don't want to be in this camp with white nationalists. As somebody whose family barely escaped the Nazis in 30s, I do not want to be associated with people who are pro-Nazi." Mm-hmm. This book...
No, he wants to be associated with people who are pro-Confederate.
Yes.
Instead, yeah.
But he's also lying, because the Armin Mohler's American edition of his book was published in 2018 by Richard Spencer. Mm-hmm. And Paul Gottfried wrote the foreword to it in 2017. So after he said that...
2017 is when Unite the Right was.
It's 2016.
No, it's 2017, pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. 2017. Okay. So he wrote the text in 2017, which is the same year when the United Right happened in Charlottesville. But he distanced himself year prior to Richard Spencer. And then next year wrote a text in which he praised Richard Spencer and thanked him for publishing this important book, mm-hmm. Which was published in 2018. So I think he was kind of dishonest when he was trying to distance himself from Richard Spencer there.
I mean, as these guys always are. It's always
like
this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting kind of what he says at the end of his foreword to the book. I'm just going to read it.
Sorry, you're just holding up the book and it's got that fucking eagle on the back and shit.
Yeah.
Just fucking, our bookshelves are deranged.
Absolutely, yeah. So he writes in the concluding part of his foreword for Armin Mohler's Conservative Revolution in Germany. He says, "The cult of liberal democracy has not saved us from the occupation of our social, cultural, and political institution by a far more insidious left than any that interwar Europe had to face."
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then he says, "Nor have capitalists proved to be a force of resistance. Providing that corporate executives and their stockholders can profit, our leaders of industry and finance have rushed toward every cause that the cultural left promotes, including the human right of lecherous old men who have declared themselves to be transgendered have free access to girls' showers.
They're always obsessed with the bathrooms. These people fucking live in Revenge of the Nerds or some shit.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see a naked woman by looking into a shower. I don't have the internet. I can't look at porn. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yes. This is literally what he wants to conclude his text with, is this. And like...
but sorry, isn't he a fucking libertarian?
Well, this is the thing. He was a libertarian, and he kind of... This text is almost kind of a criticism of that, because he mentions his own text that he wrote in 1969, which was about like the left wing of the Nazi party, the Strasserites.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he back then had trouble seeing them as a part of the right wing. And he says not because they were Nazis, but because they were socialists.
Mm-hmm.
This was what was troubling to him as someone coming from this kind of libertarian background. But I think now he sees the error of his ways, and he understands that like some kind of a form of socialism is okay for right-wingers. And then this is his explanation, what I read. Why? Because the capitalists are not saving European culture from these people who want to among other things, pretend to be transgender so they can go to women's bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it. I mean, this is kind of one of the most important intellectual kind of contributions to post-fascism, neo-fascism, new right is this book. And then this is the guy who's kind of the representative of that in the US. And this is what he concludes his text with.
Great.
Pretty great.
Yeah, these guys are really, geniuses of our time. Also, the left is more insidious now than it was in the interwar period when like there were, street battles. Charlottesville had an impressive mobilization, but I mean, come on, like, anti-fascists in Europe and fascists were like killing each other in the fucking on a regular basis. They had armed militias and shit.
No, but this is I think this idea comes out of their like very wrong reading of like Gramsci and also like Frankfurt School and everything. These things that you mentioned.
They've influenced the culture, and we can't go against that because now like Bud Light has fucking Pride Week or whatever. Yeah,
but this is not communism,
right? No.
But they think it is. They're pretty stupid.
There will be no cores in communism. We've established this already when we talked about this.
So. He, in this text, he thanks Richard Spencer for publishing this book, but he also thanks two other people. One is a guy called F. Roger Devlin, who is the translator of the book into English.
Mm.
So that's kind of interesting. That's a pseudonym. He also used Francis Roger Devlin, and he was doxxed in 2024 by Hate Watch. He's an important guy in this sphere. His actual name is Christopher Moore. I think he's 61 years old now. He's a former academic, a philosopher, but he's important because he wrote published a book in 2015, which is based on a shorter text of the same name, and that is Sexual Utopia in Power, the Feminist Revolt Against Civilization.
Nice.
So this book is
cool.
This book is the Bible of the manosphere and of the incels as well.
I mean, but when I say cool, I mean, it sounds like the feminist revolution against civilization sounds pretty awesome.
Yes. It would be awesome if true. But basically, he's the kind of the intellectual power behind the whole manosphere incel thing. He's the main authority is this guy.
Great.
And so he's the main kind of thesis of his book is that men are victimized by policies and other efforts to promote sexual and gender equality. And this kind of development made men less attractive to women and also contributed to the decline of the birth rates in the Western world.
Of course.
So this guy, Christopher Moore, or F. Roger Devlin, he became involved in the right wing in the 90s. He was affiliated with the Council of Conservative Citizens and also to Jared Taylor, the American Renaissance guy, who he calls his movement race realists. So he wrote for the journal Occidental Quarterly that we mentioned before and was on its editorial advisory board together with Richard Lynn. This is the late president of the Pioneer Fund.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this milieu is like closely connected with the new like eugenicist movement, with the Pioneer Fund was funded by them, and also is the milieu out of which the Institute of National Policy came out.
Right.
And Institute of National Policy is Richard Spencer's group. I mean,
Yeah.
he took it over in 2011. It was founded in 2005, but exactly out of this milieu of people.
And we've talked about the neo-eugenicists and the like
Yes.
in previous episodes as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy also like had an influence in European neo-fascist. In 2022, he like was a speaker at the event in Europe somewhere and spoke on how to encourage conservatives to like support the white nationalist cause and such things. And this is like his ideas had a wider influence. Like, for example, Jordan Peterson basically paraphrased some of the things from his book when he had that speech when he was talking about how monogamy should be almost like legally enforced or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
It came out of this guy.
Which, unfortunately, we're not going to probably have to deal with Jordan Peterson much in the future, given that he's, I guess, again, in some sort of coma from dust or something. What was it? Like something ridiculous?
Yeah, they always invent some fantastical illnesses.
His daughter's trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously like falling apart on like kind of mentally, I would say. But they always have some very specific physical reason why he's not well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it all started with the Zizek debate.
Yes.
It all went downhill from there.
And so that's him. And the other person that's thanked here is the editor of the book. I guess she edited the translation of the text. And that's one Nina Kouprianova, also called known as Nina Byzantina.
Oh, wait. We've talked about Nina Byzantina, haven't we?
I think we did, yeah. I don't exactly remember what did we say, but she's interesting because she was born in 1988 in Russia, and then as a teenager moved to Canada and then to Montana. And she's a Duginist.
Right. Yes.
But she was the wife of Richard Spencer for 8 years.
Okay, yeah, that's why I know her. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. They had 2 kids together, but they like had a very public falling out in 2018-19 because she accused of Richard Spencer of being like emotionally, verbally, and physically abusive. And it was like a big thing in the media. He denied it and so on.
Right.
And it was kind of one of the final acts of the implosion of the alt-right was that. And basically since then, kind of Richard Spencer gave up on the whole National Policy Institute. It's basically not active, except now he has this podcast stream thing that I listen to, which is called Radix, which was the name of the journal published by the National Policy Institute and also the publisher of the book, The Conservative Revolution in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of interesting that when she was saying these things, one of the instances she said that how she was sick and then Richard Spencer wanted her to watch a movie with him, which was a James Bond movie, downstairs somewhere in the house, and she didn't want to because she was sick. And then he got so angry that he physically dragged her down the stairs in order to watch this James Bond movie with him, which is horrible. But it's also was kind of interesting to me because I was listening to hours and hours of Richard Spencer talking about different things, and he often mentions James Bond.
So that's his like Rondo with his Jason Bourne thing.
Yes, he has like collections of James Bond novels in like very kind of nice editions.
Get the fuck out of here.
By the Folio Society and so on. So like basically, it's kind of more sophisticated version of Rando's obsession with Jason Bourne.
Fucking Jason Bourne. I'm some fucking real Jason Bourne shit.
Jason Bourne stuff, you know what I mean? Jason Bourne doesn't just, you know what I mean? You know how Jason Bourne gets down. And I try to model myself after Jason Bourne. And I'm going to mention it again, I'm watching Jason Bourne clips, dog, to get hyped up and get in the mindset. I'm like, this is me, dog. Again, I watched the Jason Bourne movies, dog, and Jason Bourne, they're able to like, you know, fucking pinpoint everything he's doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And also like I think Buckley was writing basically his own version of like James Bond novels. Like I think he wrote novels about a CIA agent or something. So a lot of these like American fascist right wingers are really, really obsessed and idolize all of this secret agent.
Yeah, they love the secret agent shit. That's their favorite stuff. Everybody from Temple of Blood, like on to Richard Spencer and fucking Rob Rundo. The one thing that they love is fictional accounts of secret agents.
Yes.
They can somehow imagine themselves being a lot like more important and cooler than they are.
Yeah. And Nina has like some internet show since last year, which is called Winter Latina Show.
Oh, right. I know. Yeah.
And she interviewed Boris Malagursky on it.
Well, have we talked about Malagursky? We have at some point. Malagursky's a very shitty American or Canadian Serbian filmmaker, well known for the film The Weight of Chains. Now, like, kind of darling of the Serbian state in various different times. He made that one film too about how like the football hooligans that killed that French hooligan in Belgrade were actually set up by whatever. He's a fucking moron.
Yeah, he is.
It makes sense that he'd be on some show like that.
Yes. But interestingly, like, so I told you that Richard Spencer is now like, he voted for Kamala and so on, and he says that he's not a white nationalist and he moved politically, but he absolutely is a white nationalist and an anti-Semite and basically a Nazi. But he came to this conclusion how he wants to support kind of the project of the liberal project of the American empire for white nationalist reasons, basically. Mm-hmm. And Radix, who published The Conservative Revolution in Germany, also published a book by Dugin. And he renounces, like, he's very much against Dugin now, obviously, as a supporter of the American empire, and he's suspicious of everyone who's into Dugin.
Because of his ex-wife.
And yes, and he actually blames her on his Duginist phase.
Uh-huh.
He says she's like a Russian chauvinist, and she somehow influenced him, and this is why they published a book by Dugin. I don't know if she translated a book by Dugin about Heidegger. I don't know if they published that one or some other one. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of funny that he blames his ex-wife on him being into Dugin. And I mean, all of this, like, I mean, the alt-right and Richard Spencer are the people who brought the term cuck and cucking into, like, the American political lexicon.
Yes.
And then they, like, imploded in a series of events that usually also involve their wives.
Yeah.
Sometimes literally it was, like, cases of cucking.
Yeah,
like the tradition, the Workers' Traditionalist Party.
Oh yeah. What's his face? Heimbach. Yeah.
So it's pretty funny.
Oh man, but what a lineup for this.
Yeah.
For the forwards of this book. I mean, Jesus Christ.
I mean, unfortunately, pretty influential people. Like not.
Yeah, I mean, very exceptionally influential now. I mean, there's not small number of people in the Trump administration who like any given number of these people.
Well, you know, I don't want to even talk about Richard Spencer now. But like when he was a student, he was a part of a conservative student association at Duke University, and his friend and close collaborator in that group was Stephen Miller.
Of course,
they are friends. You know, so yeah, even him, who's pretty marginalized now, was like a much more influential guy than you would expect.
Yeah, and I mean, Gottfried was quite influential.
I mean, yeah, definitely,
especially in this kind of revamped right wing ideology that the MAGA people are into now.
Yes,
the posts, right wing international imperial project, right? Or like the Bushes, the neocons.
Yes. Yeah. And we have the guy in Germany who is just waiting for his party to come into power, or like at least get more funding from the state budget.
Well, this is wonderful and cheery in every single way. I can't wait to learn more about the German conservative revolution and how everything that these people are pushing out is now mainstream in large political parties all around the world. This is lovely stuff.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It should be the motto of Tenepod.
But it's interesting to remember, like, okay, so this is like a book written by a fascist that we will read. And it's not it wasn't a book written by a charlatan. Like, I mean, the very fact that, the advisor for that book was Karl Jaspers gives it credibility. Like, it is. But it's kind of the opposite of like something like Siege, for example. But it's interesting that both editions of the book in the US were basically almost certainly funded by money coming out of the Pioneer Fund.
Yeah.
Like the publisher who published the first edition of Siege was connected to that, and these people are as well. So it's interesting how these things connect.
Yeah, they always connect. It's all the same shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, the new right is the European new right, something that we've been kind of talking about tackling for a while, and it's kind of difficult in a lot of ways. You have to take it back to this because it does take on so many kind of confusing forms too, right? Like in the American version, Paul Gottfried is a good example of how confusing that shit can get, right? He's like a Jewish guy, went to Yeshiva University, who like is associated with all kinds of, Nazis in some way or another, but also, like the paleoconservatism and the like. It's like when I was reading some of the Kahana stuff, I came across this rabbi who actually had some kind of interesting things to say, but he actually also was just praising the French New Right, and all that kind of stuff. And like he was interesting to me because he's not super anti-Palestinian, but it's clearly like coming from this like New Right tradition. There's all kinds of weird shit here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I want to get in, like, after we finish the conservative revolution stuff, I want to get into like European New Right.
Yeah.
Do a few episodes on that, but there's a problem that like the two books that I have on that are also written by fascists. So we kind of get to read the books against the books, Like one is written by Tom Sunich.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. He's the first guy who wrote a book about the European New Right. And there really isn't, like, I don't think in English there is a book about the European New Right that's not written by a fascist, I think. Yeah.
You're saying there might be some in like French or whatever.
Probably there is in French.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, if you know of any listeners, send them our way. We always like to get those kinds of contributions from people. We've gotten some very good, actually, recommendations of books and reading material over the last few years. So we're always looking for a little boost there in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that is I never know what to say about this. It is a disturbing episode 0 of a new series of some fucked up people. But this is an interesting. It's an important foundation to have for understanding the modern like new right in Europe, alt right in the U.S., or what was called the alt right, onto its different mutations now.
Yeah, I mean, basically the whole episode was the answer to your first question is like, why should we care about
this? Yeah. Why should we care about this cockeyed German guy's writings?
Yeah.
Turns out there's a lot of reasons. All right. Well, thanks everybody for subscribing, and we'll be back for, I think, more Kahana in the free eps and more German conservative revolution in Patreon, and then some other fun stuff coming up.
Yes. Nice.
All right, everybody. See you later.
Okay. Bye.